Connor was just selfless and caring, and he showed genuine interest and curiosity towards everybody that he met. And he was authentic in who he was and just like open to everyone and everything. And he truly lived the message to be the change that you want to see in the world. And he did that through small acts of kindness. I met Connor when we were freshmen, and he was in my homeroom because our last names both started with M. So for 4 years, we had lockers next to each other, and I got to annoy him at 8 a.m. every single day. And then come senior year, I was graduating, and everyone was picking colleges, figuring out what they were going to do. And I decided to go to the University of Delaware. And then I found out that 7 kids from my grade and school were also going to Delaware. And I was so mad because I'm like, finally, I'm free from high school. I can start it like over and have a clean slate. Like, why are these people following me to college? But the good news turned out that one of those people was Connor. Turns out Connor was in my same exact building and dorm freshman year. So he actually was a huge part of me adjusting to college. And he was always that comfortable place, like that piece of home that I needed. And being his friend was really cool. He made you feel special, and not just his best friend, but even a stranger. Like, he made you feel heard and seen. And I like being friends with Connor. Losing Connor was definitely devastating, to say the least. And because I went to high school and college with him, it affected everybody that I knew. And it's definitely like the clear turning point, and marks a loss of innocence for everyone, you know, and but also marks an awareness of gratitude. And I took Connor for granted, and I took life for granted before that happened. And, you know, looking back, we could have done more for Connor. I wish that I knew more of what was going on, and that I did more to help, and that I asked him questions and brought up emotions, and we just lived in surface level conversations like we tend to do, you know, how are you? I'm good, how are you? I didn't really ask him what was going on. And I also didn't know how to help. I was never formally educated on mental health, or, you know, besides reading one sentence about depression in physical health class. In retrospect, there definitely were warning signs, but I, one, wasn't aware of the warning signs, or that these were things that I needed to look for. And I also, you know, those warning signs weren't visible to everyone. And to set the tone, this was 2016, so even though that seems pretty recent and not that long ago, it was a totally different climate. We hadn't seen as many, you know, public suicides and celebrities taking their life. Luckily, there's a lot more advocacy happening now. But back then, there was a lot of stigma. And stigma is a pervasive barrier that prevents individuals from engaging in mental health care. And when people are uninformed or uneducated, as our school systems are lacking mental health educational programming, people make negative assumptions that delay care and that stigmatize individuals with mental illness. And part of the symptoms of having a mental disorder or mental illness is that you don't want help. You don't want to do anything. My goal in learning from Connor is really to prioritize mental health on an equivalent level to physical health. And just like someone with a physical disability might need that ramp, individuals with mental health issues need to be listened to and heard, and need that accommodation in the same respect. Another aspect was that the University of Delaware was lacking in the accessibility, quality, and quantity of mental health resources on campus. And there's also a certain culture in college that normalizes and almost makes it cool to engage in unhealthy behaviors. And yes, I'm talking about partying, but also I'm talking about not sleeping for extended periods of time because you're studying in the library, or skipping meals because of a busy schedule. And these perfectionist behaviors exist in high school too, and are very common. And our generation is under an unprecedented amount of pressure from our parents, society, and social media. And who knows even the impact of COVID on mental health at large. But in general, Connor did want help, and he did try to get help. However, the system at Delaware was very flawed. When you visit a college, when you're a senior in high school, they show you the gym and the cafeteria, and maybe, student centers where they have pizza parties. But what about mental health resources, and what about a counseling center? And it's important that schools are well equipped to support their students through their mental health issues, as they're super common. 1 in 5 adults experiences mental health issues, and most develop during adolescence. So about a year after Connor had passed, that year, I always say it was like Harry Potter when the Dementors come out, because it was just so gloomy, and like everyone was just so sad for so long. But I was really soul searching and just trying to figure out, like, what did Connor's life and his death and his legacy, like, what did that mean to me? Something that really helped me was my bond with his mom. After building that relationship with Mrs. Mullen, I was able to learn more about what happened leading up to Connor's death that I hadn't seen or knew about. And so after about a year, Mrs. Mullen wanted to do something, and a bunch of Connor's friends and I wanted to do something. And what started off as one event ended up becoming a movement, because these issues are so common and because the impact of mental health issues affects everyone. And so we ended up naming it Friends for Friends, and that's because that's who Connor was. He was a friend to anyone. He would welcome anyone and be thoughtful for that person. After that, it just kind of started to take off, and Connor majored in entrepreneurial studies, so he definitely ignited that spark for us, and we would come up with ideas, and then we would see them come to reality, and it was really exciting and empowering. So we started fundraising to improve the accessibility, quality, and quantity of mental health resources on campus. And we got Be Positive, the national foundation that does the Thon at State and You Dance at Delaware. We got them to give us their proprietary website, which is 100% what allowed us to raise as much money as we did. So once we started raising thousands of dollars, the school took notice, and the deans were asking us to meet with them, and they actually asked us to sit in on Board of Trustee meetings as student representatives. And so when we met with Delaware, we came up with essentially 4 things that we wanted to do. And the first thing was that every professor should be mandated to include mental health in their syllabus, and it should be considered an excused absence in the same way as physical health. The next thing we asked for was we insisted on the reform of the counseling center treatment model, which again only allowed for 3 sessions, and then you were on your own. And of course, a university with 30,000 students that has 13 counselors that work 8 hours a week, 5 days a week, is not going to be able to provide ongoing free mental health treatment for every student. It's just not possible. But there's a lot that we can do, and compassion needs to be involved in the process, and so that people like Connor don't slip through the cracks, and so that there's room to evaluate, okay, this person needs 4 sessions, this person needs 10 sessions, whatever it might be. But we can't just apply mental health complex emotional issues to some strict curriculum. And so the third thing that we asked for was for them to create a position of a referral coordinator to work in the counseling center. So someone whose job it was to grab every student after their 3rd and final session and to facilitate that transition to an off-campus treatment program. And then the last thing that we did was we used our money to start weekly support groups. And those support groups were for the kids, by the kids. It wasn't something that the school was pushing on them. It was like, hey, you don't have to have something wrong with you to come to this support group. You can just come and listen. You can just come and vent. We're all under a lot of stress, and it feels good to talk about it. So UD listened, we spoke, and they heard us out, and they made all these changes in the next year, and now this system is much, much better. And so Friends for Friends has blown up on campus. It's still evolving, and right now they're currently part of, and the money that they've raised is currently going towards a mental health center on campus. that will include therapy as well as meditation, yoga, alternative therapies. But most importantly, it will show the representation. Just like there's a health center for physical health, there should be a center for mental health. And once I graduated, the legacy was carried on by people that Connor was friends with, but also just people who had that same fire in their heart for other people, people that were like Connor. And I truly believe that he leads all of us, whether he knew us or not. Like, he is pushing forward from up there. He is the reason that we are so successful, because he's watching over us. And so after I graduated, I was like, okay, we started the conversation, but there's still so much work to be done. And so what's next? And what can I do that's actually like concrete? That's not just like, let's spread awareness and spread love, but like something that actually educates people or bridges the gap between bystander intervention and professional health care. So I decided to study at the National Council for Behavioral Health, and I got trained as a mental health first aid instructor. And just like CPR, mental health first aid is a training course that teaches individuals how to respond to mental health issues and how to initiate help. So I started training, I stayed in touch with Friends for Friends, and I started training the students there, and word just kept spreading. And then we decided to start an organization called Mental Health Global Network. Mental Health Global Network has the same kind of mission. We aim to prioritize mental health on an equivalent level to physical health, and we do that through these educational programmings. And so as we continue to train, we realized that there aren't tangible coping tools for mental health. And like, what if there was an item or a tangible item that would kind of, explain mental health, or at least like normalize it on the same level? And so we realized every facility has a physical first aid kit on hand for physical health issues, but we're lacking coping tools for mental health. So we created a mental health first aid kit that has 9 tangible coping tools for stress, anxiety, and sensory overload. And with that, we just hope that we can start the conversation and normalize mental health. Of course, it's not a guaranteed solution, and even the trainings are an early intervention preventative effort. But at the same time, it's like, if a teacher says to her classroom, hey, like, I have a mental health first aid kit. If you guys are going through something, I'm an ally, I'm here for you, and you can use this to cope. That person would feel more comfortable going to that teacher or that boss or whoever that person in leadership that puts mental health on this level. Also, it's a good way to start the conversation, and it can be reassuring to know that you have coping tools on hand. Just like someone with asthma that has an inhaler would know, okay, I have a plan of action if I start to feel anxious. If someone has these coping tools, essential oil, or things that have been proven to calm you down, that will help. Kindness is reminding someone of their strength, not their weakness. And our strength, all of our strength, is being able to tell our stories, and for us to be able to tell Connor's story and spread his message. And I just want to say, you all have the power to do this. You have the power to force change. You have the power to demand it and to say these things matter and to stand up for things that matter. And the youth has that passion and has that power to change the world. And I hope that Connor's story will inspire all of you to act with urgency and compassion to be the change that you want to see in the world.